Today we're going to have a look at disc brakes and how to diagnose any issues that they might have. So let's begin with taking off the wheel. Next we're going to stick a screwdriver through the hole of the caliper and pry it outwards. This will push the piston inwards and it will make it a bit easier for us to take off the caliper. It is also a great way to check if the piston or guide bolts are seized without taking the wheel off. And to remove the caliper, we're going to undo these two guide bolts. And then we're going to take this bracket off. Not all cars have a bracket like this, so don't be surprised if your car doesn't have one. Then take a screwdriver or something similar to pry the caliper off with. If you're having troubles with this, there's a good chance the brake piston is seized. But first, let's have a look at the brake pads. These pads still have a lot of meat left on them, but they are a bit shiny. Usually this is not a problem, although it can cause a high-pitched squealing sound as the brakes are applied. This happens when the brake dust has nowhere to go and gets so hot that it becomes a solid. It may also be due to poor pad material. To fix this, you can take some sandpaper to rough up the surface with, and then you can cut 1 or 2 grooves into the pad, thus creating a channel for the dust to escape through. The piston is what pushes on the inner brake pad and drags the outer one with it when you step on the brake pedal. If the piston becomes seized, it will be as if your brakes are applied all of the time. This will generate a lot of heat, which may damage the wheel bearing as well as the brake disc. This can be checked with the screwdriver method as we did earlier in this video. But you can also take some pliers and push the piston in while the caliper is off. Next, we're going to remove the carrier. Now this is the carrier which holds the brake pads, and the pads may seize in the carrier, so it is crucial to clean the mating surfaces while you're replacing pads, but more on that later. Next, we're going to take the disc off, which is secured by 2 screws. And if the disc doesn't want to come off, you can use a hammer and strike around the center, but do not strike on the friction surface, as this will damage the disc. And if your hub has wheel studs like this one have, be very mindful not to hit them. And behind the brake disc, we will find the brake shield. This may rust and bend, resulting in a very annoying sound as it contacts the disc. Usually you can just take a long screwdriver and push it inwards without having to take the wheel off. And if you are replacing the brake disc, clean off the hub surface. An uneven surface will result in vibrations. You can also do this on the disc if you are planning on reusing it. It is also a good idea to apply some anti-seize on the mating surfaces. Next, we're going to clean off the pads mating surfaces on the carrier. You can use a nylon pad, a wire brush, or even a knife. And the torque specs for this is a couple of gentle taps with a hammer. And if you are going to reuse the pads, you have to clean off the mating surfaces, and you can also apply some anti-seize. Next, we're going to take a cloth and clean off the guide bolts. This is what the caliper slides on. Then we're going to apply some grease to them, but do not use too much. You can also put them in a drill machine for faster cleaning. And if they are rusty, you want to use some sandpaper instead of a cloth. And the torque specs for the caliper is a couple of slaps with the hand. And the last thing on the list is this bracket. Moving on to the rear, it is the same procedure to remove the caliper and carrier, but here we want to have a look at the parking brake, which is located in the center of the disc. It bears the resemblance of a drum brake, which you will find in old cars or newer city cars. And here is a handy use for a pry bar if you want to keep the disc from rotating as you undo the screws. And here you can see the brake shoe move as I operate the parking brake. Only one of them is moving, but if the disc were to be on, the second one will also start moving as soon as the first one makes contact with the disc. And here we're just going to take a screwdriver and make sure that everything moves as it should, which it does. This is the expander, which pushes the brake shoes outwards when you apply the parking brake. Then we have a couple of springs that will reset the brake shoes when you let off the parking brake. And down here you have the adjuster, which you use to manually push the shoes outwards to compensate for wear. You spin this spur-shaped nut for this while the disc is on. I always use a screwdriver for this. If we are going to reuse the brake disc, we want to clean off any edges that might interfere with the brake shoes when we put it all back together again. For a perfect parking brake, you adjust the adjuster until you cannot spin the disc around by hand, and then you will just back it off slightly. Then we're just going to put everything back together again. I hope that this video has shed some light on the workings of brakes and how to diagnose issues that you might come across. Thank you for watching.